Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Sorry for the kind of delay this week. It being a holiday week. Yesterday was Thanksgiving. Today's Black Friday. So I kind of get busy with all that. But what we'll do, we'll make this a combination video recap of the Michigan Maryland game. And then, of course, looking forward to the Michigan Ohio State game. So Michigan looks great against Maryland, first and foremost. They looked really good. They didn't have any huge issues. I think they had one turnover, but they said, I believe, overturned it. So that's good. It was just a really solid game for Michigan overall, and honestly, like, it didn't need a huge breakdown because Michigan played Michigan ball, and they beat a team that they were absolutely supposed to beat. So, I'm not gonna go too deep into the stats and all like I normally do, but, yeah, overall, really happy with that, and we needed to do that in order to set the tone for the game I'm about to talk about. Um, but I will say that, Maryland still put up, 20-ish points, so some cleanup to do on defensive wise, but overall, Michigan was solid. I'm not gonna say too much about that other than that I'm happy that they won, and they needed that to, build a moral foundation for this upcoming week. Now, as you can see on the screen here, I have the kind of the stat line for Ohio State, Michigan. Now, most games, I don't care about this. I'm not a betting person. I don't do any of that. Yeah, if you do, great. Be responsible. But just because of how it was last year, with how bad Michigan was, or the end of the year, they kind of turned things around a little bit, but they were not good last year, and they turned everything around towards the end of the year, especially defensively, and just this is kind of an odd week where the rival team Michigan and Ohio State, besides being the greatest rivalry maybe of all time, in my opinion, you know, um, for some reason, no matter how bad the teams are, they play to each other's levels. If one team is ranked, like for example, this one coming up, Ohio State's ranked 1-1, Michigan's like 15th or so. Michigan's going to play to Ohio State's level, or Ohio State will play to Michigan's level, but they play very evenly and they play tough. They always play harder against each other because it just means, not to take it from the SEC, but it just means more with this game. This game is the game everybody look forward to this game, no matter how bad each team is. Everybody looks forward to seeing this game being played because they know they're going to get exciting, even when there's blowouts by certain standards, at least numerical standards. It's still a good game, and there's been some huge upsets on both ways. So it's a big game, and once again, I come back to why I have the line up here is it says Ohio is a favorite with a spread typically ranging from 9.5 to 10 points. And the money line, the outright winner according to the odds, um, they have Ohio State as a significant favorite around minus 390 to 426, while Michigan is a sizable underdog at plus 310 320. So, and the over or under, which is like the total points scored, is set around 43.5 to 44.5. Now, I think the over under, I think this could be very well be a pretty high scoring game. It really could be, absolutely. Michigan put up 45 points against Maryland, and while Ohio State's a totally different animal from Maryland, it's not, you know, compare apples to oranges here by a stretch. I think Michigan will still score, fairly well. Um, Now, being as a Michigan fan, do I want Michigan to win? Absolutely, 100%. And there will never, nobody's under any illusions that who's what my bias goes towards. However, Ohio State is the number one team in the nation for a reason. I don't care if people say, "Oh, strength of schedule, this, that, and the other." Last week, I watched like 40 SEC teams play a bunch of nobodies. And no offense to those, Division two, whatever teams, but Sanford, not impressed. So this, you can only play the teams in front of you, but you know who you scheduled. So um, Ohio State is number one for a reason, and they beat everybody in front of them, and they are going to be Michigan's hardest game of the season by far, not even close. So, um, yeah, this is gonna be interesting. Like I said, Michigan fan, I know where my bias is, but I am not under any illusion that Ohio State is going to be like anyone else who played all year, and we are going to have to be ready. All those mistakes and all, especially on defense, those mistakes, giving up those chunk plays cannot happen. Ohio State has some excellent, excellent wide receivers, very good. Um, just Michigan doesn't have those guys. Now, what Michigan does have is a better run game. Once again, my opinion, they do have a better run game by and large. Their their running back depth is solid, not great, but it's solid. So they have people that can take up that mantle. Um, I would say Kuzel is not as good as Marshall or Haynes, unfortunately, but he's there, he's on the field, he's playing hard, so you know kudos to him for that. Um, you know, you, our wide receivers, like I said, are not up to maybe the Carnell Tates or the Jeremiah Smiths of college football, but they have shown that have potential to have outstanding individual games, individual performances, and hopefully we can get a couple of those in one game instead of sporadically. So Bryce Underwood has shown that he knows how to play the game, and he's finally starting to show some touch on his passes, like I've been emphasizing in previous videos. So once again, he is a freshman, and we have to be patient with him. But at the same time, he has the ability to take this team and run with it and make it, make this it'd be an upset by every measure of the word. So that's kind of why I brought the lineup to kind of show that the last year was very similar numbers with the spread and everything. So yeah, just don't count Michigan out this year. Now I'm not going to give a point, so I'm not going to say who I think wins because I last year, no lie, I thought Ohio State was going to put up 40 points against Michigan. Uh, because Michigan's offense couldn't do anything. I thought it was going to be like a 40-7 kind of game because Michigan was looking awful offensively, and their defense just showed up in miraculous ways. Am I happy about it? Absolutely, but you know, I'm cautious. I'm cautious. So, but hey, once again, you know, as a Michigan fan, I hate to say it, but respect to Ohio State. They are number one in the nation. They deserve to be number one until they lose, whether it's to Michigan or otherwise. So Michigan has to understand that they're playing one of the best defenses they'll see all year, by far, not even close. And offensively, they need to make every drive count, uh, especially even if it's field goals. You can 1 point, a 1 point victory is still a victory. So put those make every drive count. They are playing at home in Ann Arbor, so huge. This is huge for Michigan, just enormous. Let's not. I can't even begin to understate how big it is. So, do I think Ohio State is still in the playoff? Absolutely. Even a loss to Michigan probably won't drop down more than four spots to fourth or fifth. So they're still in the playoffs, but just makes the road to the championship harder. But hey, that gives Michigan a chance to get in, and if certain things fall their way. But um, I would say they're on the outside of the playoffs right now, if I had to be honest, which sucks as a fan, but you know, it is what it is. That's the structure and that's the world we live in. But Michigan beating Ohio State would be an amazing opportunity to set a tone for the rest of the year. Bowl game. Should the playoffs be somehow a thing? I don't know the math on that, but if the very very worst, it sets the tone for the bowl game and the upcoming year. A lot of these guys are young, they're freshmen, like Bryce Underwood, and like that sets a big tone. Say, hey, we are good enough to play with the big boys. So that's a good morale thing. While I know moral, moral victories don't necessarily count as actual victories, it's still nice to have those. That feeling that you can hang. So that's a big deal. So once again, I'm not going to give a really a prediction per se on who's going to win or lose because I like to leave that up to the game itself. However, I think it is going to be a knockdown, drag out, all out brawl. You know, it's because Michigan players are motivated, Ohio State's motivated by last year. And I will say this last year, Ohio State needed to lose to Michigan last year in order to win the national championship. I think psychologically they needed to get that loss out of their system. And if you watch football last year, they played amazing after they lost to Michigan. So I think, am I hoping Michigan wins? Absolutely. But I don't know that Ohio State would make the same mistake twice, but we shall see. So once again, it's going to be a good game. You know, hopefully there's no Michigan doesn't get emotional because then that's when you start making mistakes. So, yep. All right. Now we're going to move on to the games for today's slate. I'll do a quick thing of um, last week's, but there was some notable I'll just go some notable ones. Arkansas played Texas really hard. Kansas State almost beat Utah. Yeah, I was kind of surprised. Um, yeah, Notre Dame just blew Syracuse out of the water. It was 21 to nothing before Notre Dame actually went on offense. It was crazy. Um, there was no huge. I don't remember literally everything I said, but SMU dominated Louisville. I was kind of surprised. I remember being surprised by that. But yeah, there was no huge things. Oh yeah, I Pittsburgh did beat Georgia Tech. That was an upset that I was really uh, not gonna lie. I've been rooting for Georgia Tech the entire year. If you watch any of the videos, you'll know I've been a big Georgia Tech bandwagon fan. I mean, I'm not obviously a Michigan fan, but it'd be nice to see Georgia Tech do something. So that was unfortunate. But Pittsburgh's playing hard. Good for them. And of course, Colorado's in misery. If you follow in that saga, man, it's Colorado. It's more and more like the players that would made that last year's team good as opposed to Coach Prime. So, but is what it is. So let's start with this week's slate. Utah and Kansas. They're actually going to be playing about an hour and some here. Utah should handily win that. Kansas is not one of those teams that miraculously plays well against good teams. They're not good this year. Ole Miss and Mississippi State. I believe that's called the Egg Bowl, if I remember correctly. That should be a good game. That could be close, but I think Ole Miss pulls that out. Georgia Tech. Secretly hoping Georgia Tech wins this, but I, you know that's always a fun game, even if somebody gets blown out. Still a fun game. So yeah, that's gonna be one to watch. Texas A&M, Texas, the rivalry. That's uh that's gonna be heated. And as I remember correctly, Texas is not allowing Texas A&M's dog Reveal. I can remember how to say a dog's name. Reveille, something like that. I know it's. Yeah, if you're a veteran, you know the tune trumpet thing they play in the mornings during before PT. That's the name of the dog. But they're not allowed a Texas A&M mascot in the field. Kind of soft, but okay. Indiana should handle Purdue no problem. Arizona State. That's actually could be actually a pretty good game. It's still rivalry. Tucson and Phoenix, but uh, I would say Arizona's probably got a better than average chance of winning that. Miami and Pittsburgh. If sorry, if Pittsburgh beats Miami, they're out. I don't think that they're in the playoffs. And I don't know that there's a path for them back into the playoffs. Already covered Michigan, Ohio State. I would, like I said, I'd like to see Michigan win, but it's the only time will tell. Texas Tech and West Virginia. I think Texas Tech wins that handily. UCF and BYU should win that fairly handily. Oregon and Washington. I've seen people saying that Washington could upset Oregon. I'm not buying it. I think Oregon should dominate Washington in virtually every facet, but could be wrong. But I don't buy that. LSU and Oklahoma. Oklahoma's motivated. They want to be in the playoffs. They're playing hard. They're playing good. I think they beat LSU. Um, Vandy and Tennessee. I think Vanderbilt. 10 years ago, if you had told me this, I would have laughed. But I think Vanderbilt's a better team. I really do. Tennessee's not bad by a stretch, and Josh Heupel's got a good thing going there. And this is no disrespect to them, but I just think Vandy's a better team right at this moment in time. But who knows? Tomorrow, different day. Virginia Tech and Virginia. That's a trap game for Virginia. I know it's a rivalry, so they aren't overlooking them, but at the same time, I think Virginia Tech is, they're a sleeper team, especially when they got James Franklin waiting in the wings to take over as coach. So, yeah, uh, they may want to put a show on for him. Alabama Auburn, the Iron Bowl. Man, that's another one of those who knows games. I really think Alabama is the better team, but Auburn has played some people really hard this year. I would not count them out by any stretch of the imagination. So be on the lookout to see how that game goes. I think Alabama probably wins, but Auburn is still sneaky. They might be able to, pull an upset there. UCLA and USC. USC is going to blow the doors off UCLA. USC's kind of. I mean, they lost to Oregon last week. Everybody kind of expected that. At least personally, I did. I didn't get a chance to put a video about it or do a recap of it, but I kind of expected that. Um, Charlotte and Tulane. Tulane should win that no problem. Charlotte's just not good. SMU and Cal. Trap game for SMU too. I think I think Cal is a. They're not good by any stretch, but they're sneaky. So I think they can, maybe pull the rug out from SMU. But I still think SMU should win that. Notre Dame and Stanford. Oh, that could be. That game might be over before probably before the end of the first quarter. I mean, Notre Dame is likely to avalanche on them. So, but yeah. So those are just a brief. There are. I know there's a couple more games, but those are just kind of brief overview. Uh, so that's what I was looking at. But yeah, let's see if I can't. Which one do I normally use? This one? No. There we go. See if I missed any. But yeah, so if you're watching these games, just yeah, just like I said, don't hold your breath. Oh, Navy did beat Memphis yesterday. So Memphis has no way. I don't even know they can beat in their conference championship. So went over most of these already. I'm not too particularly concerned about the Maction games. Those teams are nobody's really good this year. Nobody's really stood out from the crowd. Iowa, Nebraska could be interesting. I think Iowa wins that. There is talk about Dylan Raiola. He may not come back to Nebraska next year. So he has a chance to do the weirdest thing, go to Texas Tech and be another, you know, going. He looks a little bit like Mahomes, so you never know. That'd be ironic if nothing else. So, yeah, that's the rest of it. Those are today's games. Some of these are today's games. North Texas, man, I would not. I thought they. I thought they were ranked. Did they lose? I don't remember. But yeah, they're flying high. So hopefully, they've had a decent season so far. So maybe they pull it out. Uh, None of these are particularly too crazy. Covered most of these already. Um, Colorado, Kansas State. Kansas State has basically an opportunity to kick Colorado while they're down and basically bury them even more. And there are people who out there who would argue that Colorado earned it. So we'll see. I'm not a legendary hater, but sometimes it's you earned it. Another rivalry game: Clemson, South Carolina. Um, Two not good teams, but I think Clemson is probably a better team there. Missouri State, hopefully they beat Louisiana Tech. It'd be nice to see them continue their success. Surprising amount they've had this year. Those are mostly the Penn State Rutgers. That's another interesting game, but teams are really disappointed themselves. Hopefully, they can salvage some respectability with a solid win by one of them. Same thing, Wisconsin, Minnesota. But yeah, Maryland, Michigan State. After I think Maryland is probably better than Michigan State, but it'll be interesting to watch Michigan State when they play next year if their coach is still there. So there's a hot seat going on there. But yep. So that's pretty much it. Covered most of the games and all that. But if I miss anything, if you guys got comments, opinions, concerns, leave a message, like, subscribe, and thanks for everything. Thanks for watching. Appreciate y'all and have a great holiday weekend and go blue. Peace.